الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم عليه. Dear brothers and sisters, we are in the month of Sha'ban. Rajab has just left us and we are now heading for Ramadan. There is a beautiful hadith of our beloved Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam that appears in a book known as the Talibin of Hazrat Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani rahmatullahi alayhi. Hazrat Abu Huraira radiallahu ta'ala anhu relates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that Sha'ban is my month and Rajab is the month of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ramadan is the month of my community. Sha'ban is the expiator of sins and Ramadan is the purifier. From this hadith we find that the month of Sha'ban is a blessed month, which is the month of our beloved Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In addition to this, in the same book, Hazrat Anas bin Malik radiallahu ta'ala anhu relates in a hadith that a person came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked, Ya Rasulullah, what is the most meritorious of fasting? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's response was, fasting in Sha'ban in honor of Ramadan. From this hadith we can certainly deduce that it is important and it is really truly blessed to fast in the month of Sha'ban. Another thing that is important in this month is that the deeds of humanity is raised up, it ascends to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this month. In the Talibin of Hazrat Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani rahmatullahi alayhi, there is another hadith that states Sha'ban is the month between Rajab and Ramadan. People tend to neglect it, but that is when the deeds of the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ascend to the Lord of all the worlds. So I would rather have mine rose up in a state of fasting. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying that he would rather be in a state of fasting when his deeds reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another thing that the ulama have mentioned about this month and the awliya have mentioned about this month is that when we are in this month we should seek the forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we should appeal Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the owner of this month. And who is the owner of this month? It is none but Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, based on the hadith that I just mentioned. In another hadith, our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is known to have known to have prayed, stood in prayer all night on the 15th, or which is known as Nisf-e-Shaaban or ul-Baraa. This is an important night because in this night Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is known to have spent his entire night in prayer, and as related by Hazrat Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she mentions in a book which is called Fazail al-Awqat, it's also mentioned in the Talibin, that one night she went out looking for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and she bumped into him and she found him praying. She found him in sujood, in a ruku, and he was consistently asking for forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a very beautiful dua that is recorded in this hadith. And after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam spent the entire night in prayer, she asked him, Fidaka abi wa ummi ya Rasulullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already forgiven your past and your future, so why is it that you seek his forgiveness? And the response of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, Ya Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, should I not be a thankful servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then he asked Hazrat Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, Ya Aisha, do you know what night this is? And her response was, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know best. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded by saying, this is the night of Nisf-e-Shaaban, it is the night of 15th of Sha'ban. In this night every birth is recorded, every death is registered, provisions are allotted, deeds and actions are gathered up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we can see that from this night, in this blessed night of Sha'ban, those people whose names are written on the people who are alive are written to the register of those people who are going to die. There are many other ahadith that mention this very fact, and that our actions are lifted up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, what should we do on this blessed night? there are a few things that have been mentioned by the ulama, and if we look at the meaning of this word Bara'a, Laylatul Bara'a, Bara'a has to do with being free of something, being absolved of something, and that's why it is called Laylatul Bara'a, the night in which sins are absolved. The human being, the mu'min, is absolved from wrong actions. And how do we absolve ourselves from wrong actions? The only way to do that is to ask tawbah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And not just to seek forgiveness for yourself, but for those people who have passed before us as well. So we should seek forgiveness for our parents, for our brothers, our children, our family, those people of our family who have passed away. We should seek forgiveness for them. Now, in another hadith, as related by Hazrat Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, it mentioned that I could not find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam one night. So I went outside, and there he was in the grove. Yani he was in Jannatul Baqi, in the graveyard. And his head was turned up towards the sky, and he said to me, "Were you afraid that Allah and His Messenger would treat you unfairly?" And I replied, "Ya Rasulullah, I thought you had gone to one other of your wives." And he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, on the night of Nisf-e-Shaaban, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends to the lowest heaven and forgives more than the number of woolly hairs on the flocks of the herds of the tribe of Kalb. So from this hadith we can see few things. One is that it is a night for seeking forgiveness. The second thing is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in the graveyard itself, and he was asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness on this night of Nisf-e-Shaaban. So therefore it's a tradition of the mu'mineen to go out to the graves and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness for those people who are in the graves. Now in a book called Shab-e-Baraat, Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu relates a hadith about those people who are in the graves. He says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the dead in his grave is like the one who is drowning in a river and begging for someone to save him. The dead person in his grave waits for his mother. He waits for his father, his brother's dua, that perhaps someone will pray for his forgiveness. And when such a dua reaches him, then it is dearer to him than the whole world and everything within it. Certainly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enters into the graves of the dead, gifts the size of mountains, and gifts for the dead from those who are alive is to seek forgiveness by lifting your hands and seeking forgiveness for them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to spend our nights in worship on this blessed night of Laylatul Baraa. One way of doing this is to read 100 cycles and 1,000 repetitions of Surah Al-Ikhlas. In every rakat one should recite 10 times Surah Al-Ikhlas. This is a method of prayer that is mentioned. It's called Salatul Khair, and it is mentioned that Hazrat Hassan al-Basri rahmatullahi alayhi received this from 30 companions of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look upon the believer 70 times, and every time He looks upon that believer, 70 needs will be fulfilled for that person, and the least of those are forgiveness. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to act upon this. This again is related in the Ghuniyatul Talibin of Hazrat Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani radiallahu anhu. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينَ.